Hi, my name's Danielle, and I left the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints about a year ago, and it's a church I grew up in. I did everything in the church, served a mission and all, got married in the temple. And then I learned more about church history and church harm and things that a whole another world that I had no idea about in the church. And now I just want to talk about it. And the hard part about, I guess I want to talk about faith crises, and it's really hard because I just feel really misunderstood sometimes, because the messaging that the church gives about people who leave the church is very negative, and they basically say it's just there's no good reason to leave the church at all, and they just paint everyone who leaves the church in such a negative light. And so there's a whole mix of things that I've gone through with my faith crisis, and part of me, it really does feel it's very freeing to leave the church. I used to have constant mind chatter about basically being OCD about every little thing I'm doing, and if it was leading me closer to God or leading me away from God, and constantly thinking about what can I be doing better to live the gospel better today, and do I need to pray more, read my scriptures more, go to the temple. There's a whole list of things in the church that you're supposed to be doing at all times, and constantly never good enough. But that's why Jesus was there. But it's still just you always come short, and without Jesus, you're broken, you're nothing, you're dirty. So you are not good by yourself. You're just not capable, not worthy. You have to have this other person, you have to have the church in order for yourself to be worthy and good enough. And so now, having left the church, I feel just so much better to know that I am good enough just on my own, and I can I'm capable of doing things, and I don't need this outside thing to give me that value. I have value all on my own, and I never got that messaging from the church. Other people might have different experiences, but that's my experience. And that's a positive thing that has come out of leaving the church. But it also comes with a lot of negative things, and I don't want to talk about it too much with regular members, just because they judge so much, and the church's narrative around people who leave the church is your life is gonna fall apart. All these bad things are gonna happen to you because you left the fold, you left the church. Now Satan has a hold of you, and your life is just gonna go to hell. Basically, that's the narrative that the church teaches, and it's just really, it just adds to the difficulties of leaving the church. And it's not it's all rainbows and butterflies, leaving the church. Part of it, like I said, has been great, leaving the church, but what people don't realize is it's super difficult at the same time. It's just also some of the things that have happened, pretty much all of my relationships in life, of closer relationships, those are all different now. I really don't have, I think I have just one close relationship that was not in the church. Everybody else in my life that I've been close to ever has been in the church. And so now all of those relationships have changed. That's a huge thing to have to deal with and heal from, especially with my parents. It's kind of it's a grieving process of your relationship is never going to be the same again. and having to accept that. And there's nothing, and some members, I don't know, I think they think that, I'm choosing to, like, leave the church, so if I want, I could just go back to the church, and then all my relationships will be good again. And but that's just not the case, because that's, like, at least how it feels for me, is it's like asking somebody to believe in Santa Claus again when they know that Santa Claus just, like, isn't real. You can't, like, I mean, you could say, yeah, I believe in Santa Claus, but if you don't actually believe in Santa Claus, then it's going to be really hard to pretend that you believe in Santa Claus. So, like, for me, like, all the things I've learned about the church, I just can't, like, I can't choose to believe again. Like, it's just so many things, like, I could pretend to believe, but I think that would be it would be much more harder than, just losing all these relationships and stuff. But, yeah, so, like, that's one really hard thing to have to deal with. And then just, like, feeling like you've been scammed. Like, I have, just, like, learning new things about the church, and, like, I've been making covenants with this God, and have been worshiping him, giving my money to the church, and my time. Like, I was devoted, like, my whole life I was willing to die for the church. So many things, like, that I have given and contributed to the church and to this God, and then to learn that he's not the person that I thought that he was, after learning these things in church history, a bunch of different, like, contradictions that has been said, like, from different prophets, and it's very confusing. And yeah, so I just feel like, I've been scammed, and all these other people are getting scammed. So it's, not only are you healing from the grief of, like, losing, like, these relationships are all different, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And then feeling like you've been scammed, and then so you're frustrated about that. And then on top of that, now you realize that other people are getting scammed. So now you're not only frustrated about your own, like, experience with it, then you turn to, like, the other people that you know in your life, and seeing that all the things that they're giving to the church, under false pretenses of not knowing enough about, like, church history, and just being kind of, like, blind to all these things that are out there, but still devoting themselves so much to the church. And if only they knew a little bit more, then maybe they could, like, my point was, I don't want people to leave the church, I just want them to have more consent, more informed consent about what they're doing, like, know about the history of the church, and still be willing to give all that they have. That I'm totally fine with, as long as somebody has full knowledge of, like, who this God is, what this church is really all about, the foundations of it, the harm that it causes. And if somebody is okay with all of that, then whatever they want to do is fine. But it's not good for all these people to not know. Like, we just don't talk about stuff in the church. And that's another thing I want to talk about, is, like, the door is so closed to having conversations about anything negative in the church, and it's very damaging, and there's so much, like, harm going on, and I just hear about it all the time, and it's like, what can you do about it? And that's why I have this YouTube channel, is just to kind of just share that, and hopefully people can be willing to have conversations. And recently, like, I had a conversation with some members that, coincidentally, they're both from California. So, and I feel like California members of the church are a little bit more open-minded, at least from my experience. And so talking with them was really good. And just the fact that they were willing to have a conversation was like so meaningful to me as an ex-Mormon, to just feel like, someone's willing to talk to me. Like, there's people who have said that they don't want to talk, and it just hurts me because it makes me feel like they're not, like, they might not know all these things about the church and church harm, and they're not willing to even just listen about it, and nothing's going to change in the church unless we talk about stuff. And so I just want to talk about that. And it was good, like, talking to these people, I learned something new. Like, their experience in the church was a lot different than what I had. They were a lot more laid back about things in the church, and it didn't seem like it harmed them as much as it did for someone like me, who was very, like, OCD about stuff. Because for me, it was like this constant mind chatter about kind of like judging myself constantly about how well I was living the gospel. And for them, it sounds like it like was barely on their mind, kind of like that the church is just kind of like a side thing. Like, I'm still trying to understand their perspective, but it was good to just learn that, like, whoa, like, my experience is not the same as these other people's experience. And it's almost like, and they were very confused about, like, what I was talking about, and it's almost like there's two different churches within the church. Like, one church is like very exact obedience, perfection, OCD type, and then the other is just like, very relaxed about stuff, and just kind of picks and chooses which policies and commandments they feel like they should follow. And to me, that was not the gospel that was taught to me, that that's the way not to live, that you're not supposed to be picky choosy, you're supposed to be exactly obedient. And yeah, like, that was what was drilled into me. And so then to have, like, it's hard to fathom that there's this other group of people who had this completely different experience in the church. But anyway, it was just good to learn that like, I wouldn't have learned that if we weren't talking about stuff. And there's definitely more conversation to be had. But it was good. Like, a good thing came out of this conversation: more understanding, more empathy for each other. And that's all I think that we really need. And especially for people who have left the church, they need understanding. And if we can't even talk, then there's no hope for, like, any change in the church if we're not talking about things that are damaging. And yeah, so I just, like, plead with you guys to try to talk to people who have left the church. I know some people, they have put up boundaries, like, they don't want to talk. But I do know, like, myself and a lot of other ex-Mormons, like, really would appreciate if somebody were to just ask, like, why did you leave the church? And to be able to have a longer conversation with them about it, and try to have more understanding of some of the things that were problematic for them, and instead of judging them. And yeah, so and even if, like, I know some people, they don't want to, it's kind of like talking with politics about with people. You don't want to ruin your relationship with them by talking politics with them or religion. So maybe that is a good boundary to put up, that you don't want to talk about it with a specific person. But I would hope that you can, if they have a YouTube channel like I do, or I also have a blog, or just, whatever they're posting or whatever, like, go do your own research into it yourself. And that way you don't have to confront them person to person, but you can still maybe listen to them. There's plenty of YouTube videos of ex-Mormons sharing their stories, and that's a really great thing, I think, just to build a bridge of understanding and empathy between members and ex-Mormons, that I feel like is just not there. The door is closed to conversations, and so much harm is going to continue. And yeah, it's just going to continue to be ex-Mormons painted in this negative light. And yeah, we can't get anywhere without being able to conversate. So I think that's all I wanted to say in this video. And yeah, people who have left the church, it is hard. There's good things about it, but it is hard, and that doesn't mean that the church is true because your life is rough after leaving the church. Like, of course, your life's going to be rough. You've grown up in the church your whole life. All your relationships are different. You feel like you've been scammed, and you feel like other people are getting scammed, and people won't talk to you about it. So, of course, you're just going to, there's a lot of feelings and emotions that come with a faith crisis. And if we can talk about stuff, then maybe the future generations won't have to deal with a faith crisis, and they will have learned a better narrative of the church growing up. And as they get older, there won't be any, new information that will shake their whole world, and that we can be talking about stuff, and we can be changing things, and just being have more empathy for one another. And yeah, so thanks for watching this video, and hope you can sit down and talk with people when you have the time and try to understand more. We need that more in today's world for sure. So, all right, we'll see you.